Hello, everyone. Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me today, it's Alasdair Gold. Ali, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm glad we're kind of doing the podcast now rather than a couple of days ago. It's much nicer to talk about a really impressive win, a new contract on the way for a very good young player. Although I have to ask you, obviously, you weren't at the last couple of games. You're enjoying Everton's delightful back-to-back victories. What was what was better for you, watching that, or was it more distressing that you missed Richarlison probably put in his best performance he has yet for Spurs?
No, watching Everton, more enjoyable. I know Richarlison's got another 25 Premier League goals in him this season, so plenty more to come. But no, it was nice to see a 3-0 win over Newcastle. Did a bit of a scouting report, obviously, for you.
That was very, very helpful. Yeah, Ange said that was great. He said it was a very long email you sent, though.
But no, it's just good to see Spurs getting back to winning ways as well. Much needed. Just hard to believe that the last victory was Crystal Palace away, end of October. I mean, they have performed well in those games where they have lost. Just as we've said numerous times on the podcast, it's just about taking chances, and they didn't, but they did on Sunday against Newcastle, and really good 4-1 win, and hopefully the start of things to come now.
Yeah, I hope so. You know, social media went a bit mad in the week, and it's like, I understand the frustration of the results hadn't been great at all. You know, they hadn't won in 5 matches, although one of those was a draw at the Etihad, which was, that second half was fantastic there. And the football was still being pretty decent on the whole. But I did feel like people went a little bit overboard in the days ahead of this game. There was a lot of the doom and gloom suddenly returned and panicking. And I saw people especially on Twitter saying, or X, I think we have to call it nowadays, that, there's just why do tippy tappy around the back, play it out, hit it long. It's like, you've just kind of missed the entire point of everything that's happening at Tottenham Hotspur right now. It's a completely different Spurs, and there's going to be bumps along this road. Postecoglou's warned everyone enough what was to come, and to be fair, we kind of have tried to as well. We've mentioned that there was going to be a sticky spell at some point. And it came, and hopefully this was the result that everyone needed to just be reminded, I guess, of the direction that the club are heading in. I should say, and I think we have to, is that Newcastle were knackered. They got similar injury issues to Spurs, and I do think Postecoglou mentioned it afterwards. I think it was quite pivotal that Spurs finally had the relief of being able to bring in Richarlison and Sarr. Just 2 fresh pair of legs through the middle of the team just made a big difference. Whereas I think Newcastle were named the same starting 11 for 5 games in a row, and it did show. However, I saw Phil McNulty from BBC popped in his report after the game that Newcastle still had £100 million in attacking talent up front and barely made a dent on Spurs at the back. I think obviously they scored in the consolation goal, but I can't actually remember Vicario having to make any save of note at all in the game. So it's, there's 2 sides of it. But I think we kind of have to give Newcastle that aspect because it is something that has affected Spurs as well. But on the whole, this was a move back in the positive direction in terms of results. Hopefully sets them up now for a nice little run of fixtures leading into 2024, really, as long as they can harness the momentum.
Yeah, very much so. I think looking at the Newcastle team, still a really good team that they managed to put out. Probably just missing, obviously, Nick Pope in goal, but Dubravka coming in, he's, a really good Premier League keeper with experience. Missing Botman at the back, but other than that, no, I thought it was a pretty strong Newcastle team. But Spurs, fully deserved that win yesterday. There were a couple of openings for Newcastle, but I think there was a key intervention inside the first 10 minutes or so, and that was Ben Davies. I mean, what a piece of play that was from him. When Anthony Gordon went through on the left, looked like he'd put it on the plate for Alexander Isak, and then Davies just nips in, just gets that touch and wins a goal kick for Spurs. I mean, if that had gone in, who knows what would have happened.
Yeah, it was a really big moment that even Ben Davies, who's probably the most modest person ever when they're being interviewed, in his interview after the game with the club, he said, Yeah, no, it was. It was a big moment. It was one of those where, had they scored, there could have been an edginess in the crowd. It could have fed into the pitch. It could have all kind of gone in a different direction. And as he kind of explained it, it's one of those balls across that was, it's just like a defender's nightmare, because the odds are you're more likely to put it into your own net if you're going to try and intercept it than anything else. But he just got this beautiful little nick on it that sent it almost against Isak, and then he couldn't really harness any kind of shot. That was very good. I thought Ben Davies played very well again. He definitely looks so much more comfortable, understandably, alongside a proper natural centre back. And Postecoglou loves Ben Davies. He was talking even after the game about how he's essentially had to turn Ben Davies into a centre back this season. He's just kind of come in, no fuss, done what he's had to do. As Ben Davies said, he's played with like loads of different people in the role. I mean, he's played with Dyer, Emerson, Van de Ven briefly as well. Obviously, Romero back now. He's never kind of had a settled partner. And now, we'll have to see what happens with Van de Ven, but, it could potentially be mid to late January he's back, if he remains on track. And Romero and Davies, as long as Romero doesn't get either another red card or this fifth yellow card, because he is now on 4, then they might get a little run together as a partnership, and who knows what that will kind of look like as it gets stronger and stronger. That's not to say that Van de Ven won't come back in when he's fully fit, but it just gives Postecoglou something to think about. I thought Ben Davies was, out of everyone I thought we'd start with today, I didn't think it was Ben Davies, but he did very well. And I guess it was one of the first big moments of the game. I should also stress, I've just realised, me saying that you were watching Everton and not Spurs, you have watched the full game, haven't you, in its entirety since?
I have. I caught the last 25 minutes of it last night when they got back from Goodison. Then I watched, obviously, the first 65, 70 minutes of it this morning. So, yeah, I've done my homework. Did you notice Ben Davies's celebration as well when he cleared the ball? Yeah, a little fist pump. He was really chuffed with that.
It's the old cliche. It's like a goal, isn't it?
Yeah,
for a defender. It's like a goal at the other end, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that was very good play. But I mean, whilst Newcastle did have a couple of openings, Spurs had plenty going forward.
Oh, honestly, and the strange thing was exactly the same amount of shots as they had against West Ham, 23 shots. But the difference is they put 12 of them on target this time, and Dubravka had to make so many saves. And on top of that, you had Brennan Johnson hitting the woodwork, hit the left-hand post twice, once at each end. You had Richarlison had another effort when Kulusevski's cross bounced up right in front of him, and he was just like an inch away from getting his head and knocking it in. I don't think Newcastle could have complained if that game ended up 6 or 7 to them. In a way, you don't think about it too much, but it was the first game since that mauling at St James's Park. It really was a chance for some revenge, and they took it. And it could have been that similar kind of scoreline. It really could have. Spurs were excellent. I liked the switch back with Son going to the left again and Richarlison coming through the centre. I know we're going to talk about Richarlison properly in a bit, but just the freer version of Richarlison and Son back. And it's a great reasoning for why he did it. Postecoglou said after the game that he just felt like a lot of the Spurs' chances in the recent games had been coming out on the flank, and he wanted the club's best finisher to be on that kind of edge. And as it was, the only goal Son got was a penalty. It's weird the way it worked, but actually putting him back there just put him back for a bit into a very comfortable role that he knows well. It gave Spurs so much pace down the flanks. I mean, Johnson, Son, I love the kind of pace. And it got Kulusevski in for me, I just love him in that role, that deeper role. I think he revels in it. I think it brings an unpredictability to his game, which he doesn't have when he's on the right. And ironically, I kind of called in my talking points after the West Ham game for just Johnson and Kulusevski to dovetail occasionally and be on each other's side of the pitch and just switch up sides. And lo and behold, later in the game, when Lo Celso and Højbjerg came on and he pushed Kulusevski up, he put him on the left. I think because he just didn't want to disrupt how much of an issue Johnson was causing for the back line of Newcastle. And It was just lovely football. I don't know why, but they just must have been going for the record number of nutmegs in a game as well. It was like watching 11 Dele Allis out there at one point, honestly. And just the amount of times you go, "Way!" at the crowd because they were nutmegging another Newcastle player, it was just incredible. And I mean, look, that's not the be all and end all, and not even the lovely football's the be all and end all. The be all and end all is the goals. And this was a complete performance. It had so much, and the only disappointment, well, two. One was the daft Romero tackle, which we'll talk about, and the second one was just conceding that silly late goal because they deserved a clean sheet, the defence, for what they'd done in the game. But other than that, this was right up there with one of the best performances of the season.
Yeah, I think that late goal just takes a bit of the gloss off it slightly because as defenders and goalkeepers, that's what you want to do, keep the other team goalless. And
you get your clean sheet bonus as well.
Yeah, exactly. Matter of minutes away from it. But, take nothing away from Tottenham's performance. They were fantastic yesterday. It's just one of those where everything just seems to come together. And as I was saying to you earlier before we're on the pod, it's weird how football works because rewind a month, Spurs lost 4-1 at home to Chelsea. Newcastle then went and beat Chelsea 4-1. Spurs went and beat Newcastle 4-1. 3 points, all that matters though, and some really, really good football. I think one person we should probably start talking about, Destiny Udogie, who got his first goal for the club yesterday. It's been coming for quite some time because he takes up some really good positions in and around the box. He's had the number of shots on target this season, perhaps been a bit unlucky that first goal's not come his way, but he was heavily involved in that move, which put Son down the left wing, and that was a really, really good run from Udogie round the back of Bruno Guimaraes, behind Lascelles as well, and easy finish for him.
Yeah. All 4 goals were out of the Postecoglou playbook. They absolutely were. I was very fortunate, obviously, to be on the tour in the summer. And one of the best parts of the tour is that you get to see full training sessions, especially the ones that they do in front of all the fans. So in Perth, Thailand and Singapore, Bangkok, you got to see, I mean, in each one, probably a 2-hour training session in each. And in each of those, you just saw the foundations being built of the moves we saw last night. You saw just constant attempts of someone in the middle spinning the ball out to the flanks, either a fullback or a winger, flies to the byline, hits it low into the 6-yard box where the striker has run in to tap it in. And there's other kind of goals they score. He likes through balls and balls over the top sometimes, Postecoglou, but on the whole, I'd say probably 75% of the Postecoglou attacks will be exactly that. A low ball into the 6-yard box for the striker to finish. And honestly, I've watched them do it until they were like sick of it, and just it became instinct. And that's why I think you're now seeing such goals become commonplace. I mean, you can think of loads. Sonny scored a load of those kind of goals this season as well, just running into the 6-yard box and turning in a straight, flat, low cross from the side. And the other part that was very Postecoglou in the build-up to the first goal was both fullbacks being inside in the pitch. So you had Porro came inside off the flank, fed Udogie. Udogie switched it out wide to Son. Son gets down there, knocks it back to Udogie. And yeah, his first goal for the club. Like you say, it has been coming. A big moment for him. And obviously we also know now that looks like, well, it definitely is, a new contract on its way for Destiny Udogie, which is richly deserved because it's the thing. They sign these contracts. Look, I'd be stunned if Pape Matar Sarr doesn't sign a new one soon as well. I think he's only got something like 3 years left. You tie these players who are going to be superstars down to very long-term deals, and especially when you sign them and you sign them on a contract that's before they head back on loan. It's not really representative, I guess, of what they would be worth now. And both players, Udogie and Sarr, have shown that they're not only very good Premier League players, but they could be top Premier League players, like absolute top of the pile in their position. And Udogie, yeah, he's obviously had the odd little blip, and he's with the mistake last week, the back pass. Sorry, earlier in the week, the West Ham mistake with the back pass, sending off against Chelsea. He's on 4 yellow cards, so we've got him and Romero have got 3 games essentially to get through without getting another one. Otherwise, that's them out for a game. But on the whole, he's adapted remarkably to life, not playing as a wing back. It's just, I mean, you can imagine he was signed up, load of Italians at the club, essentially thought he was coming to Little Italy, like a version of it with so many of them. Rocks up, not only are the Italians gone, well, barring Vicario coming in as well, but he, he's told, oh, by the way, you're not going to be a wing back here. And it's like, oh, okay, right, I've got to get my head around that, having played as a wing back for Udinese. And then after that, oh yeah, by the way, you're going to be a number 10. And it's like, what? And just watching it, his kind of development has been so impressive. And yeah, this is hopefully the first of many goals. He's got a lovely kind of link up with Son. I do like that when we see that's something that I think with Johnson playing on the left, we hadn't really seen yet. But with Son, we know that partnership's already grown with Udogie, and it worked really well, obviously, yesterday. So yeah, big moment for Udogie, and get this contract, big long-term one, nice bumper deal for him, get it all sorted out and announced, and start looking forward to him, because he's a player that you can really look forward to seeing for years to come, hopefully in a Spurs shirt.
Yeah, I think carry on the way he's been playing this season, then he's got to be in with a good shout of being at the Euros for Italy in the summer. Obviously, made his debut, I think it was October, full debut against England. He's been incredible since he's come into the club this summer. I think we knew he was going to have an impact going forward, going on what he's done for Udinese, but probably maybe surprised quite a few to the levels what he's done it for Spurs this season. Such a good player, and yeah, great news that they're going to tie him down to a long contract, because that's exactly what you want. You don't want these really talented players to be getting to the final 24 months of the deal, because then the value starts plummeting. Big clubs are going to be sniffing about. So yeah, a really, really good move for Spurs, with Udogie going to be penning a new long-term contract in 17. Right then, second goal of the day, Richarlison, a much-needed goal. First one with his feet as well, since he's been at the club.
Yeah, that's such a strange stat, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just got to think every goal's been a headed goal. I mean, he scored a few with his feet that didn't count.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a big day for him. And I mean, you've seen it. You could see the surgery is hopefully has been a big thing for him. He just looks so less restricted. So less, that doesn't make any sense. Much less restricted. No, it's still the same thing. Yeah, he just looked freer. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think that's what Ange said in his post-match press conference, and I think Son as well, just in terms of his movement, running a bit more smoothly. And yeah, it's been such a frustrating start to his Tottenham career. Obviously, injuries haven't helped. I think he had about 3 separate ones last year. The lack of, consistent match rhythm at times hasn't exactly helped his case. And yeah, I think it probably was just the perfect time for him to go under the knife. Maybe not from a Tottenham perspective in terms of the amount of players we're missing, but it was something that needed to happen. And yeah, they obviously felt we've got to do it now, and hopefully it's the start of things to come from him. I think the goals will do him the world of good, and good to see him just having a big impact in that central role, because I wasn't sure where he would be starting yesterday when I saw he was in the team, whether he'd be back playing from the left, as we've seen him do a number of times, or through the middle. But it wasn't just in the final third where he had a big impact. It was in and around his own box, and headers from corners that produced, I think it was a tackle on Joe Linton, was it, on the edge of the area? And then leading up to his goal, he got the better of Bruno Guimaraes in midfield. Big tackle that sent Son on his way, and some really, really good play from Son to get the better of Kieran Trippier, who, to be fair, had a bit of a nightmare in the final 15 minutes at Goodison the other day. Maybe Ange and Spurs thought maybe Sonny probably would be the better option on the left to get the better of Trippier, and worked wonders. Richarlison on hand to put the ball in the bottom corner, and I think probably just a big weight lifted off his shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, I know. Excuse me. I know he admitted in the mix zone that the kind of groin problem that he had, the pubic bone injury, was so sore that he couldn't actually hit a shot without being in pain. He wasn't being able to just strike a ball cleanly. And Ange said, yeah, they were only putting him on the left just to get him through games. And it's like, that's just the wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but the more I hear about stuff like that, it's the same with Sonny, and I think maybe slightly different with Sonny, but Sonny last season, like 8-9 months, he had pain and it was restricted. I'm sorry, but why not just get it sorted out earlier on? I think with Son, he's that kind of character that he would just give everything to Spurs, and he would kind of almost feel like it was an insult to just stop and get the surgery. But you just wonder how much maybe a better season Spurs would have had, and he would have had he got it done. And I think it's the same with Richarlison. You kind of wonder how in the world did it get all the way until like November until he decided that he really needed to get it sorted out. I think maybe this is a case. Yeah, we always know that footballers play through little niggles, knocks, and pains and issues, and they try to wait until there's a little period of time they can sort things out. But yeah, you wonder how much time Richarlison's almost wasted when he could have been scoring more goals.
Couldn't he just got it done in the summer? I don't think.
Did he have the problem in the summer? I'm not entirely sure on the time frame of this one, because some people seem to suggest it was longer. Some people seem to suggest it's kind of since the start of the season.
It's
Obviously,
just the comments, what's been said before, just the way he's been talking about suggests it has been a bit of a longer term issue,
yeah,
especially if they're talking about his struggles last season as well. I don't know. At
yeah,
least he's had it done now, I suppose.
maybe a new manager coming in. He was worried that
Yeah.
it was a important time to miss. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, his stats yesterday: 1 tackle, 1 interception, 1 clearance, 1 dribble. He won 4 duels, 1 possession back 3 times, 6 shots at goal, 3 on target. And obviously, like I say, he was an inch away from getting what would have ended up being the 3rd goal. That, yeah, the finish was really nice. Opened up his body for that first goal. Just as someone was kind of coming in to clash him. His movement was really good. Like you said, won the ball that started the move in the first place. Pedro Porro involved again. I'm going to talk about Pedro Porro and rave about him in a little while. But yeah, this was brilliant from Richarlison. This was everything we were kind of waiting and hoping to see, a really complete performance. Like you say, the defensive side of his game, they've really missed Harry Kane. Obviously, they've missed Harry Kane in his goals, but they've also missed Harry Kane being the first head on a lot of defensive set pieces, whether it's free kicks or corners. And I felt Richarlison brought that back yesterday. And also, when you've got a team that's only got one natural centre back and not a lot of height in the back line otherwise, suddenly having someone that's very good in the air, able to defend from set pieces, it makes a huge difference. Now, this was brilliant for him. It was everything probably that he could have dreamt of the night before when he was told he was going to start. The only thing was, it's classic Richarlison. You know, he played 73 minutes. Him and Sarr both somehow played 73 minutes despite having only had a handful of minutes in previous games. And he still looked thoroughly distraught and devastated when he was taken off. I was like, I know he could have got a hat trick, but come on. I mean, if ever there was a sensible substitution, that's it, because you know the worst thing you can do with a player is overstretch them, make them tired, and then they do something stupid like pull a hamstring going for something. And I just like his face, honestly. He's the most emotive guy, and he came off and like Postecoglou just grabbed him as if to say like it's all right, like gave him a massive hug and said like you've been terrific. It was so good. Now this was brilliant.
It's always the same with him when he comes off. It doesn't matter if it's 45 minutes or it's like 96. His face is always the same. It's just like he's sulking. He wants to be on all the time. But I think it was probably the right call bringing him off, especially when this is his first start since Palace. Given the surgery, you just don't want to push him too much. And yeah, it would have been nice if he was on the pitch when they got the penalty. Whether or not they're taking it, I don't know.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, I'd imagine Son is probably the penalty taker now, and it was a lovely penalty actually. But you would have thought he'd have probably offered it to him, wouldn't you?
Because I know Ange previously said towards the start of the season, one of the pressers, when he was asked about penalties, I think he was saying Sonny, Richie, and Madders are the ones
And
who are
definitely
pretty
not
good.
Bissouma.
Yeah, Bissouma will be nowhere near them. So I don't know whether or not Son had let him take it, but penalty went in. Don't matter.
Yeah. And if people are wondering why we're saying definitely not Bissouma, is because Ange explained in that press conference that Bissouma would also, for some reason, go and practice penalties with them, and he would take hundreds. And he said, like, most of them would end up flying over the bar and into like different training pitches and stuff. And then when he did score one, he'd wildly celebrate as if it was like the greatest thing ever, kind of thing. So yeah, that's why we're saying not Bissouma. But this was massive from Richarlison, and hopefully now, this leads to seeing that kind of front three on a more permanent basis, I think, which hopefully also has a knock-on effect of seeing Kulusevski in a deeper role on a more permanent basis. Because I think if you can get all those 4 attacking players on the pitch, I know it's very attacking, but you increase your chances, I think, of finishing off a lot of the moves that Spurs are creating. And I think that's no coincidence. That's why they did that yesterday.
Yeah, I think with Richarlison playing in the central role as well, it gives Spurs a bit more presence up front, and he's someone who can, tire out the defenders. And it's also good. There's options there. Richie can play off the left, Sonny can play through the middle, so it might
be fluid.
Yeah, horses for courses at some point, depending on who they're playing. He might want to switch things about, but there's always going to be chances in Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham team. It doesn't matter if Sonny's on the left or through the middle. Opportunities on goal are going to be there for him. But yeah, good to see Richie get 2 goals and hopefully more to come. Should we talk about his second one anyway?
Yeah, I was just going to say very briefly on Richarlison. The other thing, as you say, more as a focal point and more options, they did occasionally knock it slightly longer out of defence. So all of those calling for that they were actually able to do that, because, and I'm not saying every time, but once in a while they could look up, see there maybe wasn't an option right next to them to pass a short pass, but they would see Richarlison kind of moving into space. They knew that if they knock it kind of anywhere around chest level, head level, he's probably going to be able to bring it down or control it. And it did just give them a little outlet ball at times. I'm sure Postecoglou wouldn't want them using it all the time, but just once in a while to mix it up, it wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah. Right. Richie's second goal of the game. I think we need to talk about Pedro Porro here. What a ball over the top that was. Pinpoint, and really good finish from Richarlison as well.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those passes. I say this every time with players like Pedro Porro. If someone like Kevin De Bruyne hits that ball, puts it on a sixpence, we're all raving about it. The news channels are showing that over and over again, Sky Sports News, and it's, what an example of incredible. And Porro is doing this consistently. It was a phenomenal diagonal ball. And actually, I would say that a little bit like the penalty for Son, kind of Richarlison takes a slightly heavy touch, but actually ends up working in his favour because it pushes it into a really... I mean, he may have meant that. I could be doing him a terrible disservice. He might have meant it. But it just put it into this really awkward position where Dubravka came out, but then suddenly was like too far over. The ball had kind of gone almost round him by the time he came out. So then he kind of just was able to knock it then through his legs. And it ends up, being a lovely finish as well. But Porro, my goodness. Porro was just... I mean, do you want to talk about Porro now, or we're going to save a little section for Porro? I'm happy to do either.
We'll talk about him now. So obviously,
yes,
we've mentioned him, so I think it's only right. We'll, give him his flowers now. What I did notice after Richarlison scored, some others might have seen this. Destiny Udogie's on the edge of the box. You can see this from the angle from behind the goal. As soon as Richarlison scores, Destiny Udogie just points straight to Porro. I think a handful of players go towards Richarlison, and then Udogie, Bissouma and Sarr, they go straight to Porro as well, who obviously, as the camera showed, he celebrated with Ange Postecoglou and the assistant manager, Chris Davies, after the goal. I think Ange was, very, very pleased with that assist.
It really was. And actually, just before I move off of Richarlison, that's now 4 goals and 3 assists in his 14 matches this season. So a direct goal involvement in one in every other game, which suddenly looks a lot better than it did previously. That's very good.
Yeah,
but yeah, Porro,
not bad.
Honestly, go on. You're going to say something about Richarlison. Go on, get it.
No, I was just saying, not bad. It's a decent record, isn't it, on paper when you're looking at it?
Yeah. All of that kind of praying to the poster that you've got in your, downstairs in the shrine. It's all paid off. Really good. No, it's fantastic to see. It is. And I think everyone wants him to justify the price tag, and I think everyone wants him to kind of be a massive success because he clearly wants to give everything. He clearly cares about the team and the club and everything. And yeah, it's just everyone's been looking for that little bit more quality. I could even see early in the game because he had a deflected shot from Kulusevski pass that I think it just deflected over the crossbar, and I think people started to grumble as he's not going to put anything on target kind of thing. So for him to come away with a couple of goals was just lovely for his own confidence as well. But Pedro Porro, honestly, he's been, for me, one of the revelations of this season. And not just for Spurs, I think in the Premier League. He's got 4 assists in his last 5 games. I've got his stats here somewhere. I want to read them off because it was just so good. Here we are. 3 key passes, 3 shots at goal, 1 dribble, 3 tackles, 1 interception, 1 clearance, 9 crosses, 6 long balls, and 2 through balls. He was involved in every single goal. He'd already found Romero with an early corner that Romero, it was cleared off the line. So you had that would have been an assist. Like I said, came off the flank, picked out Udogie for the opening goal. Second goal, it was his lovely crossfield ball that Trippier couldn't quite cut out. It kind of skimmed off the top of his head, went to Son. Third goal, obviously, that beautiful ball into the path of Richarlison. Fourth goal, his through ball to Son. Then Son was brought down for the penalty. He's just been phenomenal. I've already planned to ask Postecoglou about him in the presser on Thursday. I want to hear him go wild for Porro because, like you say, he did give him a huge kind of bear hug after that goal. Just phenomenal. 6 assists in 15 Premier League games. I think he's around 9 assists in the Premier League since he's joined, which I think must be. I remember there was a stat that only Trent Alexander-Arnold and Trippier had more assists as a fullback than him, and he must be getting up there now. He must be kind of creeping closer to them. And I just love the fact that he was a player that we all had, I think, doubts about. And, and you're going to tell me you probably didn't now, but I think more doubts in the fact that he was a player that Postecoglou was inheriting, a player that was coming in quite awkwardly on a loan deal with an obligation to buy when you've got a new manager who plays a different system to what he's been used to playing. But we talked about earlier about Udogie having to adapt to being a fullback and also playing a number 10. I don't think anyone has managed that transition as well as Pedro Porro has. That's just, who knew that he'd end up being a number 10 as effectively as he is a right back? And I think a lot of it comes down to the quality he has on the ball, that ability to pick out a pass. And what I love about Porro is there's no thought in terms of, and that's a good thing. There's no hesitation as he's about to hit a ball. He just instantly knows. He's got a great radar where everyone is. And even his defending has come on leaps and bounds. Very little gets past him now on the pitch. His pace is excellent. His awareness is really growing, his anticipation. But going forward, I mean, he is probably Spurs' most creative player when Maddison's out. And I don't know if that's a particularly great thing in terms of, I'm not sure your right back should be your most creative player, but certainly take it. And if you can add other creativity to it, the likes of Kulusevski and obviously Son getting 2 assists yesterday as well. And I think Johnson will contribute with a lot of assists as this season goes on, especially this move where it's a run to the byline, low cross, that suits Johnson's pace perfectly. But yeah, Pedro Porro, I mean, he's got to be up there for player of the season when it comes to it, doesn't it, right now, if he continues how he's going?
Yeah, right now, I think so. We're obviously going to talk about a bit of a Fans Footballer of the Year award we're doing, obviously, football.london. Probably should be in contention for that now.
It could be. Yeah, we'll talk about it. It's a difficult one because that's an annual one, so it's for the year of 2023. But yeah, certainly for this season, I think he could be up there.
Yeah, very much so. I think probably you can see why a few maybe had a few concerns with him switching to being a right back in Postecoglou's system, because last year, good going forward, but when he was played as a right back, I think the Newcastle game, he really, really struggled, and against Liverpool as well, at fault for a couple of goals. I think, who was it, Lion City Sailors pre-season?
Yes.
He was probably at fault for the first goal, but he's adapted so well. You always know, even though he's going to be operating as a right back in Postecoglou's system, you're going to be spending an awful lot of time in the final third. So you never had concerns about his play going forward. And no, he's adapted so well. And I think you've also got to take into account that he was new to the Premier League in January. He's probably had near enough going on, 10 months or so now in the Premier League. So that's always going to help his adaptation period. And he's been fantastic. I mean, his quality on the ball is so good. We've seen that numerous times this season. Burnley away, I think it was his long ball what put Son through for his, it might have been his hat-trick goal.
It's incredible ball, that one,
yeah, against Aston Villa as well. The amount of long balls he put over the top with Villa playing that high line to set Brennan Johnson free. Really, really impressive as well. And I mean, that ball yesterday to Richarlison, if that was Trent Alexander-Arnold making that pass, I think a lot of the being said about it, and just his vision to pick out these passes, his weight of passes extremely good. It's always on point, and yeah, he just seems to go in strength to strength with each passing game. And 6 assists for the season. Last season it was 14 assists. That was for Sporting CP and Spurs. Yeah. Given the way he's going at the moment, I think he'll be hitting that target, potentially even surpassing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just very quickly, only because it's just popped up on my phone, Richarlison has been speaking about his injury. Must have been some of those quotes from the mix zone have come out, so we can get an answer to our questions that we were asking earlier in the pod. He said, I've been suffering since last season. I've been treating it, but it wasn't helping. I had several injections in the area. I underwent several procedures and it didn't resolve the problem. Surgery was the last plan. And as it hadn't worked, I decided to have the surgery, and I was also thinking about the club, the national team. I'm much better than before. I feel confident. I feel 100%. I think this surgery helped me a lot to recover in training. Now I'm training without pain, and this is helping a lot. It is evolving every day now and thinking about the next game. So there you go. He has been having it for a while. I think, to be fair, I'm going to go against what I said earlier about the surgery thing, but I have always been told that by people around players, that surgery is always seen as the last resort. It's like a drastic action to take if nothing else works. And yeah, but hey, it's done the trick in this occasion as well. But yeah, Porro, absolutely, honestly, phenomenal. I'm so kind of pleased with the way he's going to go on, because he also seems to be the most likable guy around the club. I even saw on Instagram last night, Cristian Romero, among his photos, had him with the Player of the Match award. I don't know whether he's ended up with that somehow or whether he's nicked that off of Son, because I'm pretty sure Son, I think it was the actual Premier League Man of the Match award. And Porro had put underneath in the comments, like, give Sonny his award back or something like that. Because, yeah, I mean, Sonny has to win that, or Porro. Romero is okay. But yeah, I can't imagine how he ended up with a Man of the Match if he did actually get it.
I think there was a few more players ahead of him in the order for Man of the Match yesterday. But yeah, at least he had a picture with it, though. That's what he wanted.
That's all that counts.
Yeah. Right, we're halfway through the pod. So, Ali, do you want to let everyone know about the benefits of using NordVPN?
Of course. If you're not aware by now, the Gold Guest Talk Tottenham podcast is sponsored by NordVPN, and you can use their service in a host of different ways to enhance your internet experience. NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world, and that means there's no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. As you're well aware, if you've heard me talking about the kind of extolling the virtues of NordVPN. It is something that I've used for many years, long before they came on board as a podcast sponsor for us. And it's a brilliant service. It allows you to watch whatever you like anywhere in the world, whether that be stuff that you would watch back home in the UK and you want to take it with you, or watch stuff from other countries and you want to watch it in the UK. And also there's an enhanced security element as well. If you want to use public Wi-Fi, it just helps that little bit more to try to stop those nasty people getting into your devices and taking things off of them you don't want them to. And not only that, but the outlay on the NordVPN subscription is cheaper for you in the long run. That's because you can purchase streaming services or bookings from other countries at a much cheaper rate. So, for example, you could book flights from another country and it could be cheaper too than booking it from the UK. And that means you're paying out for Nord, but you're actually saving money overall. There's a whole host of other benefits from signing up to NordVPN, so why not give it a go? You can grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/Gold Guest to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 4 additional months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee.
Let's talk about Brennan Johnson, because he's getting a good run in the Tottenham team at the moment. It's said it a number of times on the pod. It's just been such a stop-start beginning to his Spurs career, especially the first couple of months with all the international breaks, the injury as well. But getting a good run in the Spurs team, and on another day, maybe could have had 2 goals to his name and potentially an assist. First effort, hit the post, really, really good strike. The second one was so unlucky. I don't know if he was trying to cross it or what. He just seemed to maybe take a slight bobble before he made contact with it. I thought that was going to hit the post and go in. Then the assist when he put it across the face of goal, and Sarr just couldn't get the right connection on it. I think Johnson had an impact. His pace is just going to be huge for Ange Postecoglou's team, and I think the assists will start to rack up. I think he'll score at Forest on Friday. I think it'll just all come together for him on Friday. It's bound to happen.
Yeah, I thought. Well, Ben Davies said after the game that he felt it was Johnson's best game in a Spurs shirt. I think it could have been. Obviously, he's contributed directly in other games with assists and a goal, obviously against Wolves as well. But yeah, as you say, I think this is one of these where fine margins prevented him having something to show for it as well. I think the second effort was a shot. I think it was like a rising shot he was trying to put in the top corner. But yeah, it was very unlucky. I mean, to come out the inside of the post and not go into it. Normally you see them fly in. He was excellent. I think a lot of it did help that he was on his natural side. I think being more comfortable flying down the right really did help him. And he's just such an exciting young player. It's remarkable to think he's only 22 as well. There's so much more that can kind of be added to his game. And as Ben Davies said, he kind of is coming with a £47.5 million price tag, and it hasn't really affected him that much. I wouldn't say he's been weighed down by the price tag. He's getting fitter now, and I know he came off late yesterday, but he's getting pretty much almost the full 90 minutes each time. And I feel like he's contributing a lot more defensively as well, getting back and really kind of playing a part in that respect. I think I might have his stats. I'm trying to remember if I did that. Yes, 3 key passes, went on 4 dribbles, made 1 tackle, 1 interception, and 1 clearance. And like I say, when Decky was pushed back up the pitch late in the game, he stayed on the right just because he was so effective there and he was causing so many problems for, Tino Livramento has been really good. He's had an excellent season, but he just absolutely struggled. And, this is the thing, is like, people have been bashing Postecoglou kind of naivety in his tactics and things like that, with results not particularly going Spurs' way. But I thought he got it spot on. I thought his tactics were absolutely right to get at Newcastle, not only kind of nullify them at the other end, but absolutely tear their defence apart in the way they attack the fullbacks. Johnson, this was a big stepping stone for him, I felt. And I'm with you. I think I could see a goal coming at Forest, which there's no way on earth he's going to celebrate, surely. Kind of having come through as a hometown boy, I can't see him celebrating a goal if he does score there. But it'll be interesting to see the reception he gets. Hopefully, it should be a good one.
I can't see why he wouldn't. I mean, he played an absolute pivotal role in them returning to the Premier League for the first time in what, about 22, 23 years. Played a big role in them staying in the Premier League as well last season. So, yeah, come through the academy. He should get a really good reception.
Yeah, and he brought in a load of money for them as well, which they could spend on another 20 players, and it was just one of those steps up. I'd hope no one could really begrudge him for. And again, another really good guy, a nice guy. Everyone that speaks about him speaks like what a good, nice character he is around the place, and how he's got on really well and settled in very quickly. And yeah, I think it'll just be interesting to see now what happens with him in the future. Does Postecoglou? I'll ask you this actually as a question. Does Postecoglou turn him into a flying winger who racks up the assists, or does he turn him into like an attacker that maybe eventually becomes a central striker?
Tough one. I'd probably go with winger at the moment. I think that's his best position. Yeah, he's played centrally for Forest before, but I think even if he's going to be playing on the right wing, yeah, he can rack up the assists, but he can also contribute with a number of goals as well. Like I said, if you're in Spurs' front three, opportunities on goal are going to be there for you. It's down for you to take them. Yeah, I think it's a really good signing. I think there's a lot more to come from him. I think potentially starting Friday at the City Ground.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the beauty of it. Like, you're quite right. The wingers in a Postecoglou system kind of are expected to weigh in with almost as many goals as a centre forward. So if you end up, let's say they have Son and Johnson now on the wings, they're two guys that know how to score goals in the Premier League, and then they could get a hefty total. So yeah, I guess maybe I'm trying to put him in a box he doesn't need to be in. Maybe he can be flexible enough to still be everything. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you make of Yves Bissouma's performance yesterday? Because, I mean, I can't really comment on his performance against West Ham, so I didn't watch it. Against City, I thought he struggled. But then, again, you've got to take into consideration he's just been in and out of the team recently because of all these suspensions, and he was struggling for form from that Luton game. But having watched yesterday's performance, looked more like himself, getting on the ball, trying to make things happen. I thought he did okay, Bissouma.
Yeah. I'd say he's got progressively better since the City game. I thought he was a level above that performance when they played West Ham. And I thought yesterday he was then again another step above that. He looked so much more comfortable with Sarr alongside him. I think when he plays with Højbjerg, there's a real crisscrossing of each other's duties, and they get into each other's space, and Højbjerg will come deep and try and get the ball when that's kind of Bissouma's remit, and it doesn't quite work. Whereas with Sarr, they've got this lovely kind of, it's almost like an older brother, younger brother relationship. I think he calls him his younger brother as well when he talks about Sarr Bissouma. And there's just a knowledge that Sarr is going to be charging up and down the pitch. He knows that. I mean, he's got the most ridiculous battery on him. Just the power reserves he has are ridiculous, Sarr. And that just allows Bissouma to play his role, really. He doesn't have to worry about kind of covering in certain positions. And yeah, I thought he was okay. I still don't think we're quite at the dominating level he was earlier in the season when he was driving them forward and even around the box. You were like, he could make something happen in the box. He's dribbling into the box and creating chances there. I don't think he's quite at that stage again yet, but I do think he's trending in the right direction now. And like I say, having Sarr back alongside him consistently, and that's another thing. I mean, we'll talk about Sarr in a little bit, but I did think about it last night. Some of their most kind of awkward performances have been without Sarr. I wonder whether he's actually been as big a miss as anyone in recent games.
Yeah, I think so. I thought it was absolutely superb yesterday, and you can just see what he brings to the team. He just brings so much energy and drive in the middle, and for someone so young, such a confident player as well. I mean, he's pretty much taking the mickey out of Anthony Gordon down the wing, turned him inside and out a couple of times, involved in a lot of Spurs' good play, especially for Johnson's chance, what hit the post in the second half. It was that back heel to Kulusevski, then drove forward.
Yeah.
Such a good move, and maybe on another day, maybe could have finished that chance from Johnson if he made better contact with it. But he's been so good, and I mean, he's coming up to a year now since his first Tottenham start, his first Spurs appearance, and he's grown so much in that amount of time, and he's only going to get better playing in Ange Postecoglou's team. I thought he was really, really good yesterday. He just showed, just how important he is to this Tottenham team.
Yeah, that moment with the back heel to Kulusevski, that for me, very similar to Porro, what I was talking about, how he's just got such a quick footballing brain and the radar of where everyone is. And that's, it feels really harsh to draw a direct comparison because they're not playing. They're playing in the same position, but not quite suited in the same way to position. But with Højbjerg, often there's a little moment's thought before a pass. There's that little moment of hesitation, and that's sometimes when the moment is lost. Whereas with Sarr, and we're talking about an attacking sense, when he runs forward, it's an instant, I know what to do with this. I know where this is going. I know where this player is. And you saw that so many times. Only 21 years old. It's just scary, isn't it? It's how good he can possibly be. I've got his stats as well. 2 key passes, 4 tackles, 1 interception, and yes, he should have scored, I think, from that ball across from Johnson, which was a lovely one. And it was just funny. He's just a player that Postecoglou kind of really fell for in pre-season. The more he saw of him, he realised this kid's going to be something special. There's a reason they call him. What do they call him? Star Boy, don't they? Behind the scenes at the club, the other players, because he's just got everything about him. And I remember asking him. It was before his injury. It was about a month and a half back. Asking Postecoglou, where's Sarr going to end up playing? And he's like, that's the beauty of it. We don't know, because he can play the 6, he can play the 8, he can play the 10, he can play all of those roles, and he can even fill in at fullback for you and be just as good. So that must be so exciting for a coach. It's almost like having a blank canvas, but with all of the different colours of paints that you possibly want to put on it. You can just create whatever you want out of this terrific young player. And he's just so enthusiastic. He's got such a brilliant engine on him and just incredible talent. Yeah, I mean, it was a huge coup, wasn't it? Remember at the time when we wrote about him signing, a lot of people across Europe realised kind of what a class act he was going to be. Maybe it didn't really register over here as outside the club as being that particularly a big deal. And I think everyone will now see. I wouldn't be shocked if we get to the end of this season and people talking about him being like up in this bracket now, the silly prices that people talk about, people like Casado and stuff like that. And they're talking about Sarr being worth that sort of money because, yeah, he's got the whole road laid out ahead of him. And it's very exciting.
Well, I mean, if he keeps going the way he is and Spurs end up finishing, top 5 come May, he could potentially be in the running for PFA Young Player of the Year. Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great shout. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, easily.
Yeah. Just hopefully he keeps going as he is. And as you said earlier in the pod, if Udogie signed a new contract, Sarr next in line, I think would go down really, really well with the fan base.
I'd be stunned if it's not happening. Honestly, I'd imagine that is being worked on in the background right now because you have to tie him up to a new deal. You can't have 3 years left on someone like that. He's got to have like a 6-year deal sat out there.
It might be like Chelsea kind of deals. Just get one like 8-year contracts or whatever it is. Right, Cristian Romero then. Second game back following his 3-match ban. Potentially could have been looking at a 4-match ban for that challenge on Callum Wilson. Red card or the right call for you?
I thought he was lucky. I'll be honest. I thought he was lucky. Every time I watched it, I winced, which is just what Romero tackle is, unfortunately. I do wonder whether there was an element of him knowing it was Callum Wilson, and obviously, we didn't even mention that on Richarlison and everything that kind of Richarlison coming into the game. This was the first time he was coming up against one of either Wilson or Antonio, who infamously on their podcast had a bit of a mocking kind of trolling him a little bit for his celebrations for offside goals and whipping his shirt off and things like that. This was the first time he was coming against one of them because Antonio was injured in the week. And I just wonder whether the other players were very aware of this as well, because obviously we're going to talk about his little Vicario moment with Wilson, a couple of them. Lo Celso looked to get involved, as he always does in pretty much every incident that's going. And this tackle from Romero and Wilson as well. It wasn't clever. And it was ridiculously unnecessary because they were 3-0 up at that point. No need to fly into a challenge there. This is the thing with Romero, and it's so frustrating because it's been absent for much of the rest of the season until that daft Chelsea kind of head loss in 2 moments. And then yesterday, he did very well for long periods. They struggled to get past him. He had the big chance that was cleared off the line early on. And even at the end, he was acting as a peacemaker. I saw him just essentially throwing Lo Celso and Vicario away from Wilson kind of confrontation that was going on. Yet in that single moment, had anyone in that VAR room just been a little bit more just having a bad day or something, I don't know, and they looked at that in a different light, I think it might not have been too many complaints had he gone. And to get a 4-game ban would have just been, oh my goodness, can you imagine that? Missing 7 games out of 9 through suspension, that would be horrendous. And like I said, he got the yellow for that, and that yellow puts him on 4. He could easily, in the next 3 games, get another yellow card. It's such a difficult position to kind of avoid that. Although, in the first 5 games, he didn't even commit a foul. So this is the thing. It's like it's in him. All this talk about he needs that aggression as part of his game. He's actually already shown that he doesn't have to have it as a constant in his tackling. He can defend and marshal the attacker really well, but that was a head loss moment. Look, I know there's people that are saying if you look at the rules where he caught him, technically you can make the case, and as they presumably did, that it wasn't dangerous enough to merit a red card. But my goodness, why even put yourself in a position where that discussion is being had? I just don't get those moments that he had. I really don't.
Maybe he wanted the festive period off because 4-match ban had meant it'd have been back for Burnley at the start of January in the FA Cup.
That used to be the old cliche because some players would actually do that, wouldn't they? They'd deliberately get themselves sent off.
Yeah, for me, it was a red card. I thought as soon as that tackle was made and he was given the booking, there was a bit of a pause. I thought, here we go, VAR are going to get involved here and upgrade it like they did with Curtis Jones at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at the end of September. It wasn't a good challenge at all. Obviously, catching Wilson on the ankle and then with his other foot swiping at him.
Scissors, wasn't it? Scissors tackle. It was, not good.
Yeah, it was a red for me. It's just so lucky to get away with it because I thought 9 times out of 10 he probably would have got sent off for it. But yeah, he's shown in the first half of the season, or anyway, prior to that red card against Chelsea, he can control it. But you're always going to get these moments in games where he's going to jump in for a big tackle and maybe catch someone. I don't think you can eradicate that from his game fully. He's always going to have that, edge to him because that's the way he's always played. That's the way he's probably been brought up to play. I mean, that'd have been an absolute nightmare if he was given the red card and a 4-match ban, 2 games, after coming back from a 3-match ban.
Can you imagine that club fine? The club fine would have been huge. It'd have been like months worth of fine, a couple of months, you'd have thought.
Yeah, but luckily for Spurs, didn't see red in the end. But yeah, hopefully no more of those kind of incidents coming up then. As you mentioned as well, there was a bit of a moment between Guillermo Vicario and Callum Wilson at the end. I think Wilson not happy with Vicario, supposedly pulling faces at him after saving the shot. Bizarre.
Yeah, because we saw the commotion at the end, and we had missed. It's difficult to see for the press box why it had happened. And looking back, what I think has happened is that there was one moment when Vicario grabs the ball. I don't know if it was a cross or what it was, but as he grabbed it, Wilson gives him a little bit of a kind of a shoulder bump, like a push away. It's unnecessary. And then he kind of says something to him with a big grin on his face. And then I think as long as it's chronologically the right order, he then Wilson gets a reasonable chance, but heads it really tamely at goal. Vicario just catches it nice and easy, and then sticks his tongue out at Wilson and laughs at him as he does. And it's quite funny actually because it was very similar to Postecoglou celebrated the goal with his tongue kind of hanging down as well. It looked like he was about to do the haka, the New Zealand rugby thing. It is New Zealand, isn't it?
Yeah,
Haka.
it is.
Yeah. Just for a moment, my brain froze. And so he does this to Wilson, who clearly doesn't like that. And at the end, they have like a whinge at each other. And then, Wilson after the game digs out your mate, Jordan Pickford, as well, and said that, it's about people not knowing how to win properly. And we saw it when Pickford was running around. The goalkeeper was pulling faces. There's a lack of respect. We're grown men. I've said my piece and we move on. To which Vicario put on Instagram, respect is given to everyone that respects me. And I have to admit, there's a huge dose of hypocrisy going on there. If Callum Wilson, who publicly in a podcast has run down, mocked or trolled, whatever you want to call it, another striker in the Premier League, can then say someone else disrespect him on a football pitch. Oh, come on. It's like, it's really kind of, it's childish. It's just a bit of fun on the pitch. The amount of times that there's little things that strikers probably say to defenders or goalkeepers that we'll never hear of, like when they nutmeg them or when they get past them. That's what football is. It's people just having a little bit of kind of a poking fun at each other as well. And I just thought there was a touch of sour grapes about it. There was, I've lost a game. I'm really unhappy. I'm going to take out my frustration here and just blame everyone else for something. And I like Callum Wilson. I think he's a really good player. And I kind of wish Spurs, I remember back when Newcastle got him, but I think Spurs kind of balked at the price when he was obviously had his injury issues. But this for me was just a nonsensical kind of moment, and that he kind of blew out of proportion. And obviously the fact that we can kind of see it now in all its glory with Vicario's face and stuff like that. And even the Spurs admin getting involved on their social media account with Richarlison. It was a really nice little edit. They'd deliberately didn't look like a great crop, so that it looked like it was kind of roughly done of. Did you ever watch The Last Dance, the documentary?
I did. Yeah.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant series, Michael Jordan and Chicago Bulls. And they'd used the moment when Michael Jordan says, I took that personally, and they'd superimposed Richarlison's face on it. And that's the point, isn't it? It's like he did his response with his feet and he scored the goals. And I do think that this was all a bit sour grapes and, like I say, massively hypocritical.
Yeah, well, I think if he wants respect, then, maybe don't be slagging off fellow pros on your own podcast, but there you go.
Exactly.
So Forest up next on Friday night at the City Ground. Should be a really, really good atmosphere because it was at the City Ground last year in August. Friday night under the lights. Forest desperately need a win. They've had a bit of a rotten run of late under Steve Cooper. I thought he'd have gone after last week against Fulham when they lost 5-0, but still in the job, got a good point at Wolves, and now he needs a win. This is a chance, obviously, for Spurs to carry on the momentum from Sunday against Newcastle, and 3 points will put them into a good position in terms of keeping up the pace and the pressure on the top four.
Yeah, I'd like to see a clean sheet. I think that's so important for this defence because that late goal was a daft one to concede. Obviously, it came through Højbjerg playing a pass that just was never going to make it through, and then the defence were caught on their heels a bit because of that. But I'd like to see a clean sheet, and I mean, it's the old cliche, touch wood. They're a team that are there for the taking if Spurs want to step up and battle. Because that's the most important thing, and that's what Postecoglou keeps trying to instill in them. It's like, it's great that you're playing a nice football, but you can't rely on the nice football to win the games. You've got to actually have the steel behind it, and in his word that he loves using at the moment, conviction. Apparently, Eddie Howe used that in his post-match press conference as well. We didn't have the conviction. Maybe it's going to be the new buzzword this season. And yeah, I think, like you say, it's a big kind of homecoming for Brennan Johnson. They've all got, 5 days to recover, so everyone hopefully should be in a good place fitness-wise. It's a reasonable week on the training ground as well to really kind of put into place a lot more of this, the attacking element of the game with Richarlison through the centre. And we wait to see what happens with Chris Davies as well. Obviously, the Chris Davies situation, Postecoglou pretty much said it's in his hands. He's probably going to have to make the decision. He wasn't giving anything away last night either. He said he wasn't thinking about it. Neither was Chris Davies. I was watching Chris Davies a couple of times. He was obviously celebrating as wildly as he would normally for the goals. I mean, just to ask you, it's a bit of a no-brainer for him. It's a great opportunity for him, surely, to take if he gets offered the job, and you'd imagine he will be.
Yeah, I think, was he at Swansea coming through
Yeah.
under Brendan Rodgers, wasn't he? Like 2011, 2012. So, yeah, if you want to take your first steps into management, then maybe Swansea could be the position for him. I think they're in a decent enough position in the Championship. Maybe put a run together for the playoffs come the end of the season. Good club. Yeah, I think if your end goal is to become a full-time manager, then maybe this is the opportunity for him.
Yeah, and he loves his possession football. That's what he's all about. He'll suit Swansea down to the ground. Postecoglou called him outstanding in his pre-match press conference. And he said, and you get this impression with Postecoglou, he gets as much joy from developing coaches as he does from developing players. And he loves them to go on and have success. And as he said himself, I'd be more concerned if people weren't looking to take my staff, because it shows how good they are. And what would you do now? Again, this doesn't, obviously, unless you're going to send another lengthy email to Ange, this isn't going to affect his thoughts. But would you promote someone like, I guess, maybe either Ryan Mason or Matthew Wells? Matthew Wells has got the experience as an assistant manager for Scott Parker and I think about 3 different clubs, Fulham, Bournemouth, and in Belgium as well, I think. And then bring in another kind of younger coach, or would you bring in another slightly more experienced coach like Chris Davies was, who'd been had a bit more experience as an assistant manager? Which way would you go?
I mean, Davies is still quite young, isn't he? Is he
Yeah,
late
he's 38.
early 40s? Yeah, but he has
38,
built up a lot of experience in the game.
Yeah.
Mason Wells have, plenty of experience. Maybe you promote one of those into Davies's position and bring someone else in. What's Harry Kewell doing now? Because obviously he was linked, wasn't he, with
Celtic, isn't he?
I don't know. I can't remember if he's on Brendan Rodgers' staff. It was the chap.
He stayed there. I'm pretty sure he did.
It was the chap at Celtic that were linked with
John Kennedy. Yeah.
Yes, that's it. But I mean, he's committed his future to Celtic, didn't he, in the summer?
Yeah.
So I think Ange maybe promote one of Mason and Wells and bring in a younger coach with fresh ideas. He always likes that, doesn't he? Every club he's been at, having someone new coming in, new ideas. So maybe that.
Do you want a little Harry Kewell update? Quite interestingly, he is still at Celtic, but he's, funnily enough, being lined up potentially, or he was earlier in the week, as a potential front runner for the Yokohama Marinos managerial job, which would be a very strange kind of cycle, wouldn't it? Him going back into Ange's former club. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they were linked with Paul Clement, Spurs. I remember that. And there was another experienced coach back in the summer as well that they didn't end up going for. It's a difficult one because he wants someone that is going to be kind of, he can develop and mold in a way, rather than a very experienced coach who is very set in their ways and what they do. So, yeah, I think that bracket, that age range of the late kind of 30s is quite a good kind of age range for his coaches, because they can subscribe to his doctrine in a way and play exactly how he wants them to. But, yeah, Chris Davies will be a loss, but I think the beauty of the Postecoglou way is coming into a club, new coaches every time, surely, because it's his way, and I think Harry Kewell once said, didn't he, 48 hours is all it took him to take on his philosophy, that, you can bring someone else in and should be able to assimilate them quite quickly, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned earlier in the podcast, we have the Tottenham Hotspur Fans Footballer of the Year for 2023. It's the big award. Forget the Ballon d'Or and the PFA Player of the Year. This is the one all Tottenham players want come the end of the year. So we have 4 candidates. It is for 2023. It's been such a tough one in terms of picking because
the first half of the year was rubbish. That's why.
Yeah. I mean, we have come up with 4 names. The 4 are Harry Kane, Son Heung-min, Guglielmo Vicario, and James Maddison. Obviously, Kane's not a Tottenham player anymore. He's at Bayern Munich.
But he isn't. No.
But we can't ignore what he did for Spurs, I think, in the first 6 months of this year, because if he weren't for Kane last season, God knows where Spurs would have been in the league. They wouldn't have been 8th where they finished, put it that way. That was 30 Premier League goals.
Yeah. You didn't want to put Richarlison in your list? No,
no, 2024 maybe. But I don't think we can include Richie. It's just been one of these years. Porro, maybe looking back at it now, you could have maybe included him. But
I really think so.
He had a few shaky moments at the beginning of the year. Sarr, I think we agreed at the time. I mean, didn't really get a run in the team, did he, under Conte? There was a few good performances, most notably AC Milan in the Champions League at the San Siro. What a European debut that was. But after that, he still didn't get a run, even though we deserved a run in the team. So it has been tough trying to pick 4 for 2023.
It was a nightmare, let's be honest. It's a complete nightmare, because everyone looks at it and there'll be loads of names that people are screaming at us now who are doing really well this season. But this is, how many months of this season we've had? 3-4 months, and there's 5 months of the previous season you've got to take into account as well. So that kind of justifies, I guess, more of your vote as well, looking back. And like I said, it was pants at the end of last season. It was utter garbage on the whole. Do you know what? I think it has to be Harry Kane. In my mind, I would go for Harry Kane, I think, because, like you say, the sheer amount of what he did before he left. And as you say, I dread to think where they would have been. Especially with Son carrying the injury, which obviously we now know. And I think, in hindsight, because we picked these names a little while back, I would say that Porro overall, especially if he continues this for the last 3 weeks of the year, I think he might creep in there. I know, yes, he had some shaky moments. I remember against Leicester, the debut was iffy, and against Newcastle, playing in that horrendous backline that they tried to do. But I actually think overall, still his contribution improved as that season got to near its conclusion. And I think add that to what he's done this season. I mean, you could argue that Sonny has been brilliant this season and still contributed kind of goals and moments last season, despite at the end of the second half of last season, despite being absolutely kind of restricted by his injury. It's so difficult. It's like you can't really give it to Vicario for 3-4 excellent months. Maddison, that's even shorter because of the injury. Oh, honestly, I'd love to know if you're, listening to this on the podcast version. Please send us a tweet or whatever, any post on any social media platform. Let us know who you would pick. And likewise, if you're watching this now on the YouTube channel, please comment underneath and let us know, because we're as stumped as anyone trying to actually come up with what should be an easy thing to do. But it's so difficult. And last season being horrendous really has played a part. It's like, could you say that Romero has been good enough? But was Romero that great towards the end of last season? I don't think he was. He was a World Cup winner. So I guess, I suppose that's 2022 technically. It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But they lifted in December, didn't they?
Yeah, pretty much a year ago.
Yeah. So, yeah, please, answers on a postcard. Let us know. Because, I mean, who would you pick? If I forced you right now, you got to pick one. Who'd you pick?
Kane. I
Yeah.
think over the course of the year, and it is only, 5-6 months, he, out of the four, is the one who had the most impact for me. The Vicario and Maddison are having a big impact now, but you can't give him it.
Van de Ven would have been a big shout as well, before the injury.
Yeah, I don't think Sonny's done enough over a calendar year. I think he's had a good start to this season. Start of the year, he was struggling probably early, really from March onwards, where he started contributing a bit more in terms of goals. But I think we made these picks at the start of November. So if we were asked to do them again, I think Porro would be included, especially given he's 5 assists in his last 4 games, or 4 assists in his last 5 games, whatever it is.
5, yeah. I'm just looking up Son because I'm just wondering whether data-wise we're doing him a disservice. Only because I know he obviously. Let's have a look. I've got him here now. Second half of last season. Yep, I thought we were. He actually scored the bulk of his goals in the second half of the season. He went through a little run where he got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 goals and 2 assists in about 10 games from between February and the end of April. So I think Son actually, in hindsight, probably pushes Kane the closest, purely because we know his performances weren't amazing, and the first half of the season he really did struggle, and we know why. But actually, second half of the season, if you look up his stats and his goals and his assists, I mean, if I'm just going to take 2023 in the Premier League, he scored 3, 6, 7 goals and 4 assists. So he wasn't horrendous in the latter half of the season at all in terms of the goals. I'm just having a little look in the Champions League. There's none. Yeah, we know the FA Cup didn't go anywhere. Although, no, to be fair, he did score 2, didn't he, against Preston in the fourth round as well.
He did, yeah.
So 9 goals and 4 assists in the second half of last season. Yeah, I might revise that. I think I'd still probably give it to Kane. Oh, but do you? But then I guess you could argue what he's done this season. He's got another 10 Premier League goals. So I suppose it's a difficult one. That's made it a little bit closer for me. We'll let the people decide.
Yeah. Of course, the people decide. It's between Kane and Son. Let's be realistic. So yeah, it's down to you to decide. It'll be on our social channels. It's on the football.london website. We'll put it out there to make sure you can cast your vote. And then there's obviously the same award, but for the Nationals. So a number of players in that. I think there's 12 in the running. So yeah, we could potentially be heading to Tottenham Hotspur training ground to present Son with the award, or Munich. So we'll have to wait and see who wins. But yeah, just let us know. Votes. Right, I think that's that, ain't it, for today's podcast. There was plenty to speak about after that 4-1 win over Newcastle United. So just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To grab a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/Gold Guest. You can receive an extra 4 months for free, and there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the episode description box.